Yeah.
Sure.
Great. Hi, John. Hi, Abigail. Hi, Martin.
Hi, Brooke. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you doing?
Hi, John.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon.
Hi, Martin. And Abigail, can you hear us?
Hi. Yes, I can
Hi.
hear you. Hi.
Great.
How are you? How is
Good.
everyone?
How are you? How's Honiara?
It's okay. We're hanging in there. I know that laugh. I know what that laugh means.
So Abigail lives where I used to live in Solomon Islands. Hi, Han. Great. So we have a few more people joining. So maybe we can go ahead and get started, even though we're a small group, because I think that there will be some people who will not be able to join us today live and maybe watching the recording due to, conflicting priorities. We know it's a very busy time of the year. So if that's okay, we can go ahead with the, 10 or so people that are here now and hope that others maybe can catch up, or maybe it means that they're also well prepared already and don't need to hear any of this preparation talk. Okay, so welcome to the webinar. Today we're going to be talking about preparing for the 8th Washington Schools International Learning Exchange, or the WinS ILE. So I have to remember that many people are also new to maybe working in this region, and this may be some people's first ILE. So I had to make sure that I write out all of the acronyms here. This webinar is really going to be fairly informal today. It's really meant to be a place to share information and to freely engage with each other in active discussion. So we would really encourage everyone to use the chat box, and there will be some time after some of the presenters speak and at the end of the webinar to take questions and answers. And during that time, we'll also invite you to unmute, raise your hand, and jump in and have a conversation. There's a lot of combined years of wisdom and of expertise from those of you that are joining from previous WinS ILEs. So we'll also may ask some of you ILE pros to jump in during the question and answer and share how you're preparing in your country. This webinar is being recorded. You will have seen the little notification when you came in. So if you have any concerns or you prefer not to be recorded, you may consider leaving the webinar now, but we hope you will all stay. Okay, so on the next slide, you'll see who we are and what we're going to talk about. My name is Brooke Yamakoshi, and I'm a WASH specialist with UNICEF's East Asia and Pacific Regional Office based in Bangkok. And I'm joined by my colleagues, Johan Leonardia, who's the regional coordinator for the GIZ Fit for School program, and Nicole is going to be upset with me if I mispronounce her last name. So I'll say Nicole, many of you know her. She's our regional WASH specialist for UNICEF's regional office for South Asia. We're going to be talking, we have 7 agenda items today that we're going to be talking about. And after some of these, we know some of you may have some questions on some specific items. So we will be taking question and answer, like I said. So let's move on to the first agenda item, which is an overview of the agenda for the Washington Schools ILE. So on the next slide, you'll see the dates, the times, and what you can expect. So this 8th Washington Schools International Learning Exchange this year will be held virtually. It will be held virtually in 3 half days. So 3 4-hour blocks of time with some breaks. It's going to be held on the 16th, 17th, and 18th of November. So coming up in, I don't know, what's that, about 40 days now. And so we're getting close, and the excitement for this ILE is building. On the next slide, you'll see a little bit of the purpose and the goals of the ILE. So for those of you that maybe haven't joined a Washington Schools International Learning Exchange in the past, the purpose is to share good practices, information, and materials available to be able to support countries in the improvement of Washington schools conditions. And this year, given the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and that many governments and development partners are focused on the safe reopening of schools, that will certainly be a theme. We'll talk about that in just a moment. One of the really nice things about these ILEs is that it's an opportunity to really freely exchange and connect with others from other countries and with those people working in the sector with you who maybe you communicate with regularly, and maybe there are some that you haven't connected with so much recently because of competing priorities due to the pandemic. So the goals are really to facilitate learning on Washington schools towards reaching both SDG 4 and SDG 6, so the SDG on education and the SDG on WASH, to generate momentum and some political commitments. So many of you may remember this from previous ILEs, towards accelerating progress on Washington schools, and to reinforce linkages between the ministries of education and regional networks of Washington schools practitioners. Maybe I can just see from those of you that are on the call now, can you put in the chat box whether you have attended an ILE in the past or whether this is your first? Maybe just a yes or a no in the chat box. So have you been to an ILE in the past? Okay, so I see that maybe we're about split. So some have never been. This might be your first time coming to an ILE, and for some of you, you're old pros. Okay, great. And for those of you that did attend previously, so I see a couple of you, John, James, and of course Johan, have attended in the past. Maybe you can just share in the chat box your favorite part of these ILEs, because I think that they've been quite special events. And maybe just to show you what's been so special about some of them, you can go to the next slide, Kim. And you can see here that it's really been great events that have brought together practitioners, Washington schools enthusiasts, ministries of education, and ministries responsible for other parts of WASH. It hosted usually by national governments and including trips to the field. So we've been reflecting a lot on what makes these ILEs special and how we can ensure that even as we move to a virtual format, we're keeping the kind of real spirit of the ILE and of connection there throughout the program. So we'll talk about what we've done to be able to bring some of those elements in. And we really hope that you can be partners in that and help us capture that spirit of the ILE by, maybe, sharing, kind of bringing some of the field closer in the videos. So we'll talk about that, as well as maybe sharing and reflecting on your personal journey with Washington schools. And James, I just want to call out some of the comments that Johan, John, and James have put in the chat box. James is saying that the 6th ILE, so the one before this ILE that I'm showing on the screen, which was the last in-person ILE, so the 6th ILE was hosted in 2017 in Myanmar, and the visit to the field with different nationalities was fun. Johan is also saying the school visit was a lot of fun, and John is talking about the country dialogues. Great. So we can talk about ways to bring those elements into this virtual ILE. Okay, so on the next slide, and I really have to thank Kim for advancing the slides here. I want to start with a summary overview of the agenda, and we will be distributing this summary agenda with the formal invitation because you've received the save the date, and we said invitation to follow, and so we are working on getting that out very soon. The ILE will be 3 days. You can see the times here that are listed are Bangkok time. So some of you may need to do a quick conversion in your head. I know that for some of you in the Pacific, this may be getting to the end of office hours, and we really thank you for your flexibility on this. We also need to ensure that colleagues as far west as Kabul can join from the office or join from a place where they can be connected. Early in their morning. So thanks for bearing with us on these virtual events with time zones. So 3 days, 2 keynotes, 2 opportunities to join 3 tracks of technical sessions, breaks and networking, and 1 country planning and country dialogue session. So that's kind of our rundown. Let me take you through this in a little bit more detail. Starting on day 1, which is Tuesday, the 16th of November, we will be starting with an opening session, which is normal to have our welcome remarks and a little bit of an introduction and overview of the agenda. Then we'll be moving into a keynote speech that will be about Washington schools and how Washington schools can support safe school reopening during the ongoing pandemic. After that, we'll have a 30-minute break, and this break is unstructured time to be able to either meet and exchange with others on the virtual event platform or to attend to health needs. These may be your own needs like eating or exercising your human right to sanitation, or it could be the needs of a family member for those of you that are still working from home. But we do want to make sure both that we give a good break in there and that everybody comes back and joins us for the rest of the sessions. In the afternoon of the first day, we will have a session of country updates. Many of you may remember these from previous ILEs. The country updates are being done through video, which Johan will talk about in just a moment. And this is an opportunity to hear and see what's going on in other countries. And I have to say the speed and quality of the learning during the pandemic and exchange from other countries has been so tremendous that I'm really excited for this session. There will be some breaks here, so don't worry, it's not going to be a straight long session where you're glued to the computer. And for those of you that would like some inspiration, we'll also post all of the materials, including the videos from the previous in-person ILE from Manila. We'll post the link to the DepEd website that has that in the chat box. At the end of day 1, we'll have a short closing and summary. And then we'll come back again on Wednesday at the same time, midday for Bangkok. We'll start with a short introduction again, and then move into a keynote from our colleagues at the JMP on the state of Washington schools and to talk about some of the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. After that, we'll have a break as well, and then we'll move into these technical sessions. So for the technical sessions, you'll see that there's 2 blocks of time, one that's on Wednesday and one that's on Thursday with 3 parallel sessions and themes that you can follow along. And so I'll talk about that in more detail in just a moment. The end of Wednesday, we'll have a short summary of the technical tracks for the technical track leads. We'll give a few key feedback points. So if you were in one room and you're wondering what happened in the others, then we will let you know there. Then we'll come back on the 3rd day, starting with technical sessions, going into the break, and ending with our country planning and country consultations. And then we'll have a closing session that's short, and that will be the end of the ILE. On the next slide, I have some information specifically about the technical tracks. The technical tracks, there are 3. You notice from the agenda that these are parallel sessions, which means that every person can only attend one. However, they will be recorded, and we know that your country delegations will have more than just you. So we're hoping that as you strategize on how you will be participating in the ILE with others in your country, that perhaps you can discuss how you would like to be represented at these different technical tracks to make the most of the event. The 3 tracks will be first on Washington schools and school reopening. That will cover both guidelines at the global and national level, as well as experiences and implementation. The second track will be about monitoring and data management. And that will cover the 3-star approach and data management and data use. And the 3rd track will be composed of 2 different topics. On the 2nd day, we'll have a session on menstrual health and hygiene, and on the 3rd day on climate resilient Washington schools. Some of you may have already been contacted about presentations in some of these tracks. We still perhaps could accommodate some additional presentations. So if you're interested in sharing, or you think that if you're a representative of the government joining today, or if you are a UNICEF or GIZ colleague and you think that your government counterparts would be interested in presenting on a specific topic, please do get in touch, either with one of the 3 of us presenting today, or through another organizational focal point. So with that, I'll wrap up my part of the presentation and hand it over to Nicole to talk about the invitations and the enabling environment matrix updates. Over to you, Nicole.
Thank Thank you very much, Brooke. Kim, would you mind moving to the next slide? Thank you so much. So, invitations. Given that the ILE is virtual this year, we can be a little bit more generous in the participation of any of the colleagues that would like to join. So what we would like to ask you is to kind of compile a country level invitation list. Ideally, you can be working on this within your technical working groups or within your Washington Schools coordination groups. The actual invitation list can then be determined either by government or by your line ministries. So since this is a Washington Schools event, we would like to encourage you to reach out to ministries of environment as well as your respective line ministries in ministries of education, I'm sorry, as well as your respective line ministries in WASH. And any other ministries that you would think were good to join for this event. We would like to ask you to keep it to a manageable group for exchange. As you have just heard, there is a session that is dedicated to a country dialogue. So about 10 to 15 people per country, although this is not a strict limit. But we've learned from past events that this is kind of a good group to actually get to results when you're exchanging virtually. If you end up with a list that's significantly larger, maybe that would be something to discuss and we can see where we can accommodate, but really kind of focus your invitation list on government counterparts more than on any kind of development partners. If those are worried that they will miss out on information or will miss out on the content that is presented, we are going to stream the event live as well as make recordings available afterwards. We will provide you very soon, within the coming 2 or 3 days, with draft invitation letters that you can send out to ministries as well as then speakers if you were chosen to present during a technical track. And please, for this, keep in mind, for the invitation list, keep in mind that the program is going to be primarily in English. We are looking into simultaneous translation for some country offices that have specifically requested it, but there will not be simultaneous translation for everyone. So kind of fluency or at least a solid use of English would be a prerequisite to make it on this invitation list. Next slide, please. On the enabling environment matrix, for those of you that haven't joined a ILE previously, the enabling environment matrix is an analysis of the 5 building blocks or the functions that impact the government agencies to work well, to develop Washington Schools in a sustained and effective manner. And we have set up, or for those that haven't joined yet, there is parts of the enabling environment matrix. It's an Excel sheet currently of previous years that you can then compare to your current situation. To update the matrix, we would like to ask you to determine who leads on this within the country office, as some country offices have a strong presence of other partners that are working within WASH for Work, so to avoid duplications. We would like to invite you to work with others, either through your technical working groups or set up a specific meeting to fill the enabling matrix out where it's possible. In countries where it's currently not possible, maybe this can be done through email exchanges or a quick Zoom meeting. Ideally, we would like to ask you to submit this by the 15th of October. Given the fact that today is the 6th of October and you might need a little bit more time, we are willing to be flexible within a couple of days. But given that ideally the enabling environment metrics is discussed previously, it would be great to have it more or less latest by the 20th, 21st, 23rd of October. All matrices will be included in the document sets that are shared out to you, and you can already find the 2019 versions on the ILE page that EAPO has set up that should be available to everybody. Maybe Kim, if you don't mind putting the link to it in the chat again, if that would be possible for everybody to have a look at it. And move to the next slide. Thank you. As you can see there, it is an Excel sheet. There are a couple of points to be filled out. As we said, those refer to the 5 key building blocks on the enabling environment. So that would be policy and planning, budget, and as well as expenditure of budget, monitoring and evaluation, implementation arrangements, as well as capacity development. And then in the bottom of the Excel sheet, you will find a line that refers to innovation. So if there is any kind of innovation work that has been done that you would like to highlight and discuss in your country sessions, then that would be great to be included there, as the enabling environment metrics is going to be the basis for your country office discussions. Maybe we can have a quick stop here and see if there are any questions about any of the previously presented content. I think it's a meeting setting, so please just unmute yourselves if you have any questions. I do have a enabling environment metrics open in the background, so if you want to have a quick live presentation of the metrics as well, we can do that for you now.
Great. Maybe, Nicole, I can just read out. I have a private message from John. So sorry, John, for taking your private message public, but I think that it is relevant to everybody, which is a question about this October 15th deadline. And I'm saying that because some of you on the call have already contacted me also previously to ask about this deadline. I think, like Nicole said, given also that it's Global Hand Washing Day, and many of you may be working with the same ministries on preparation for Global Hand Washing Day. If you need an extra week, that's fine. Please just let us know. And then James is asking Nicole if you can share links to last year matrices, and again about the timeline.
I will put the link into the chat right now. Great.
And so for James, John, and anybody else that has a concern about the timeline, just let us know, what is your target date, and we'll know, and we won't, be asking you about that. Great. So with that, if no other questions or experience sharing about the EE matrix, going once, going twice, we will turn it over to Johan on preparing the country update video.
Okay, thanks very much, Brooke. So yeah, so it's now the country update video. Thank you, Kim, for moving the slide forward. As you know, for the veterans, and this used to be country presentations on slides, but there is the tendency for presentations, as you know, to take more time than was allotted. So to keep the discipline of the time limit, we shifted to the country video format, which is for this ILE limited now to a very restrictive 3 minutes. Well, as you know, we only have half days now, not a full day, so we have to keep it shorter, and it's also in consideration of the other countries who might also want to show their videos. So the more time you will take for your video, the less time others will have, or the longer we will extend into the day, which is also not a comfortable schedule for some of the countries. So yeah, so the first note here is try to keep it within 3 minutes. Well, yeah, I know there will be some who will try to go beyond, but yeah, maybe at the worst not to make it hit the 4-minute mark, but please try to keep it within 3 minutes in consideration of the other countries. Yes, so the format is open, but because the theme of the ILE is mainly on how WinS supports the safe reopening of schools after the pandemic, so we suggest to also highlight this theme, and then the the language is in English, as Brooke said, or with English subtitles, and hopefully with a decent sound quality and shooting resolution. Though it's not going to be projected in a large screen, only in our screen. So I guess the kind of resolution that is acceptable for viewing in laptops should be fine. Uh, John, you raised your hand, or is it from
Hi.
earlier? Yes, John.
I've just actually come from another, just before this, an overlapping joint UN webinar on school reopening. And before that, a couple of them. And before that, a couple of them. And before that, another one actually. And in the past, well, maybe 6 months, we've had like five or so many um, webinars and presentations on school reopening. And WASH in schools has always been featured in there. Now, and all the country presentations have actually featured WASH in schools, how this is being done, etc. And I'm afraid actually that if we might end up just, and if I might tell you frankly, practically all these presentations are repetitions of what has been of either what was presented before or just a similar presentation to what others have presented. And I'm afraid we might end up with the same thing in the ILE with these presentations. And I don't think we have this, that it brings out the value of the ILE, the value of the ILE in there. But historically, the value of the ILE actually has been within the EE, the Enabling Environment Matrix. And it's what's actually been the basis for the discussion, for the presentations, moving forward, the actions that take everything, including the technical sessions, are influenced by how do we move the EE. So I think one of the particular focus, if I may suggest, of the guidance on for countries to do the presentation is to apply is to show how their current EE, their enabling environment policy, budgets, etc., how these were mobilized, or how the needle has been moved, by the response to the pandemic. As having attended so many webinars, I don't expect to see. I don't want to be seeing again that children are hand washing, pictures of them doing this. But the ILE, I would like to see how has policy enabled wash in schools to be to one, how policy has allowed wash in schools to be mainstreamed or to be front, center, and back of school reopening. In the same way, I may ask, how has the school reopening initiatives, particularly the context of the pandemic, moved the needle on policy? How has it moved the needle on budgets? How is it moved the needle on, if you may go back to the Manila Action Declaration, one of the key things there is, how has it moved ownership, or how has it actually change the ownership of washing schools in a country? If we can focus just on one or two questions on this, that brings in that value of what the ILE is, particularly arising from the environment enabling matrix, I think we'll spare ourselves of another run through of the basically all the same types of presentations that we've had in the many webinars on school reopening that featured washing schools, and be able to actually still make sure that the ILE is the ILE.
Yes, thank you, John. Yes, no, your point is very well taken. I actually brought that up personally also during one of the meetings, but unfortunately, I am not a one-man decision maker in this, and I'm just the messenger in a way. So it was been pre-agreed. The save the dates have been sent out, but uh, on the next slide, you will find that all your points have been addressed in the next slide. And also, I'd like to thank you very much for pretty much also saying exactly the points of what else can be shown in the video. So yeah, I also would also recommend that you take note of what John said, because these are very valid points that can be featured in the videos. Yes, okay. Uh, yeah, I think in the previous slide there was one point there about it can be interviews or pictures of education facilities at the moment, how they look like, just some how people work during the pandemic, what's the impact on WinS, and how WinS impacted the response. So basically, that's what you can do in terms of suggestions, in terms of footages. And on the next slide, please, Kim. Thank you. Yes. Yes. So, like as John said, no, of course, the pandemic response is the highlight, but true, it has been covered in so many webinars before. But also at the same time, we have a slightly different audience, I would understand as well, because these are mostly government officials, and in many of these other events, most attendees are also from the development side, I would understand. But anyway, okay. In any case, the questions that we might want to address in the video, aside from what John mentioned, would be: how has the pandemic increased the efforts to improve WinS? Has it been a catalyst for more WinS investment and prioritization? And what are the key challenges for safe reopening of schools? Yeah, like the how and how these are addressed, and what are we hoping to accomplish in the coming year? Again, also in terms of what's ahead for WinS, and then how the wash in schools protocols played a role in the reopening and running of schools during the pandemic, and how the WinS programs contributed to preparedness and response and resilience during the pandemic. Like, for example, having the data available, having the infrastructure available showed that WinS made education systems better prepared for such situations. And finally, as John mentioned, innovative approaches to a key WinS enabler and how your country did it. Of course, the enabling environment is still in focus, and as we know that he is correct that the enablers are really the systemic levers that lead to really lasting changes on the WinS landscape beyond the pandemic. Again, as John said, and related to this, you might also want to reflect on the commitments made on the 7th WinS ILE in the Philippines in 2019. As we know, because previously the country's themes were usually what happened after the last ILE. And in fact, now we have 2 years of developments which can also be nicely featured in this event. Other ideas are still, again, monitoring and reporting on WinS and how this has been used to trigger action, mobilize resources, also for planning and budgeting, advocacy, and also for triggering action as the three-star approach was designed to do. Then, of course, the activities and efforts for assessing school readiness for reopening, especially using WinS data to show the use of WinS data for assessing school readiness for reopening, and of course featuring the roles of various stakeholders, key stakeholders such as students, school heads, teachers and parents and community members, government officials, civil society, NGOs, and the private sector, donors and partners. And yeah, and finally, as John also mentioned, again, the impact of programs and their interventions around the enabling environment framework while ensuring equity, equality, and sustainability. So yes, as you can see, you are free to show, of course, also enabling environment features, progress in your WinS plans made during the previous ILEs, and school reopening. This is open. So yeah, and then I hope that this will address your concern, John. And well, we'll be doing that stuff together when we get back to work in the DepEd TWG. And next slide, please, Kim. Yeah, and to prepare the video, of course, we need to the standard step would usually be to meet with your WinS TWG, determine who leads in the development of the storyboard and the script, and of course try to work with others through the TWG. This is also an exercise of collaboration. As you know, this whole country team preparations are also some sort of a bonding moment with your TWG members, time to strengthen, align, and strengthen your collaboration. And also in developing your storyline or script, try to keep it within 300 words, because Brooke told me that they have measured that 100 words is approximately a minute. So if you make a script, you do a word count, and 300 words should be enough. And also, if it is possible, consider if you have photos in the field at the moment, that would still be great. Although we know that it is quite difficult to get photos and videos at this moment, that is why we also eased up on the technical specifications, like the quality. It will be possible that some videos will be taken by phone cameras by your partners or people in the field, because they cannot, a video team cannot access the field, or contracting might be too difficult. So we are also lax in this aspect. In terms of the file format, I would understand that normally it would be sent through MP4. Yeah, so I guess that's the most common file format. To be submitted via YouTube, WeTransfer or Dropbox transfer to the regional points. I think that's Brooke and Nicole. But there will be a link, and then there will be one link. It will be reviewed by the regional team, and then stitched together by the event manager. So submission is again 15th of October, which we know is very tight. And again, I will defer to what Brooke said. We are also flexible to extend this, as I guess we know it will take some time. So I guess the last week of October would not beyond October, hopefully, would be the estimate deadline, given considering that some might not have started the videos at the moment. Yes, so I pause here for some questions or comments or
Great.
suggestions. Yes.
Johan, maybe I can jump in and summarize some of the questions and comments that have come up.
Yeah, sure.
So I think that first of all, just to respond to John's point, you will have noticed that when Nicole was talking about updating the enabling environment matrix and Johan's talking about the country update videos, these are things to be working with the government, or maybe the government's already leading, taking the lead on the preparation already. And working with others through your technical working group or your core group, depending on what the situation is in your country. We have put these two together in the preparation guide because, exactly as John said, we really hope that the updates will be focused on what's changed in the enabling environment, how these policies have been enabling WASH in schools, or what the impact of the pandemic on WASH in schools has been. What's changed? Are there new policies? Have you switched to real-time monitoring? Has it accelerated financing, for WASH in schools? How are the two linked? Because exactly as John said, we do hope, and indeed we're using as a starting point, that many colleagues will have attended these excellent webinars and events that have been done on safe school reopening. So we don't want to spend the entire time just recapping presentations that have already been made elsewhere. And that's why you'll see that in the technical tracks that I talked about earlier, we also have a couple of technical tracks that you'll recognize from previous ILEs, where there's been some momentum or some new elements that we want to keep continually bringing in, even despite the current situation of schools. So those are things like monitoring, moving from just aligning to SDG indicators to looking at use of data, data analysis and use of data, as well as, of course, equity and gender inclusion issues with menstrual health and hygiene and climate resilience. So Johan, you have a couple of questions. First, Saranga has had his hand up for quite a while, so let's go to Saranga first, and then I can read out some of the questions in the chat box.
Yeah, thank you, Brooke. Suranga from UNICEF Timor-Leste. Yeah, so my general idea is this time ILE should be different, definitely, as John said, for several reasons. As you more talk about the enabling environment, I would like to talk about the more grassroots level. Now, actually, what's happening in most of the countries that schools are not continuously functioning. When the COVID surge comes, it goes back to online platforms again. And so this, my observation is that this has created an enormous challenge in conventional washing schools concept, where you have school, regular school time and vacation, so that you know when to maintain and how to operate. So everything is now in sort of like in a sort of mess, I would say. So that and also most of the children study from home, and other than the curricular based subjects, I don't see that we are communicating anything on the behavior, especially on hygiene. So I think the online education platforms, I think we have to continue this modality for some time until the pandemic exists. So definitely we need to talk about maintaining the WASH, I would say school, but through the spirit of WASH through the online education during this time, while also looking into how school managements maintain the WASH facilities. Therefore, just talking about the conventional maintenance and other issues should be different this time, to my understanding. And also behavior change this time should count the online education aspect greatly, at least for a couple of times ahead. So that's my suggestion, to think something about that during your session planning. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Shuranga. Yes, yes, those are points well taken, and yes, I guess if you weave them together into the idea to look at the pandemic response through the lens of the enabling environment matrix, then it does indeed fit, because I think one of the aspects of the enabling environment is also capacity development. So that will fall into that. But yeah, and true, I guess it will also still address the John's point, and also what Brooke reiterated on how the needle has moved in a way through the years and also across the pandemic phase. Yeah.
Great. Johan, there was a question in the chat box about whether the country updates have to be in the form of a video.
Yes. Yes. Well, I mean, it has to be in a form of a video because of the event organization. It would be I think it would be quite complex for the event organizers to shift from a stitched video suddenly to a PowerPoint presentation. And of course, it might also be unfair to those who took the effort to do a video. But if this is, I think, quite difficult, I would imagine you notice these options like to do recorded presentations as well. So as long as it is in a video format, I think for the administration of the whole event and the organization of the event, I guess the farthest I will go to that question would be to be a recorded presentation. What do you think, Brooke?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think that if you look at the DepEd website of some of the previous country update videos just to give you some inspiration, because I think, Abigail, it's the first time that you're joining for an ILE. You'll see that there are some countries that used a mix of graphics, you know, and some live video kind of footage or interview style footage. So you have some options available to you, and happy to discuss more your specific concerns now or as a follow-up to the webinar. And Gertrudis is asking if the presentation can be, this presentation can be shared, and we will share this recording and we will post it also on a non-UNICEF platform, which is the WinS Network web page, so that it's also accessible to other partners that have trouble using SharePoint, which is even most of us in UNICEF. Any other questions for Johan on the country update video?
Yes. If none, thank you very much, Brooke. Yes, I think Brooke mentioned everything already, that where it will be uploaded, so you, your other colleagues, or you can also share it with your TWG members. So yeah, thank you.
Great, thanks, Johan. And now I'm just going to talk very briefly about country discussions and country consultations. And before I do that, I wanted to share something that I forgot to mention earlier in this meeting, which is about the format of the ILE. So like I said, it's going to be virtual. I think many of us have joined, I don't know on a weekly basis how much time you spend in online meetings and webinars, but it's probably a very substantial amount now compared to what it was before the pandemic. I'm sure many of you have also attended conferences this year that have been online. This week, the UNC Water and Health Conference is happening. Many of you attended or tried to attend the Water and Wash Futures event hosted by the International Water Centre and the Australian government earlier this year, as well as the Stockholm World Water Week. These platforms, some have been very challenging to join. Some have been quite interactive, you know, and some have really facilitated fun happenstance meetings and one-on-one interactions. We're hoping that the virtual platform that we have selected with one of UNICEF's vendors for virtual events will give you the best of both worlds. So we'll be using Zoom for the presentations, which I'm sure, you know, we're all very comfortable with now, but we'll also have meeting areas and networking areas in the virtual platform. All of these details will come to you in an admin note. You know, this year, the admin note won't have hotel or currency exchange information, but rather it will have a virtual tour of this virtual environment. And we hope that you'll be able to sign on, you know, even a little bit early or stay a little bit later and check out some of the networking opportunities of the ILE. So that leads us into country discussions. And during the ILE, on the next slide, you'll see that we have a session on the third day that's dedicated to this sort of reflection and priority setting based on what you will have heard during the ILE presentations and in consultation with others in your country. The way that this session will be structured is group work by country, meaning that you will be in a room with only those from the same country. And then we'll have 50 minutes for a country consultation. You will remember that John put in the chat box that this was his favorite part of previous ILEs. It was mine too. It's a great opportunity to compare progress on the enabling environment, challenges and commitments with other countries, and to be able to have that sort of exchange. So we are, you know, looking at how we're going to do this in the virtual format, but there will be this time during the event. You'll notice that this group work is much less. This is less time than we have had in previous ILEs because it's online, and quite frankly, it's difficult to be doing these consultations online. We really hope that you will see the ILE this year as a continuing discussion and part of an ongoing conversation with your Washington Schools colleagues at country level. What this means is some of you have already started to have meetings in country to prepare the EE matrix, the country updates, and more generally to prepare your delegation to the ILE. We hope that during these meetings, you will also reflect on what you would like to get out of these country consultations and come with a couple of priorities and things that you'll be hoping to advance during the event. As far as the logistics of these country discussions is concerned, we also hope that you will be able to nominate somebody to facilitate the group work and the discussions at country level, as well as a note taker and somebody that can help you follow up after the event. And the follow-up is really going to be very important. On the next slide, we just have a couple of pointers really for your feedback on following up after the ILE. Because we won't be able to accomplish everything, and many of the activities like looking at how things are in the field, having more time for some of these discussions, country consultations, making commitments won't be possible. We hope that after the ILE, you can already have a date in mind before the end of the year, because November 18th is the last day of the ILE. There's only really 6 weeks left in the year, and we know that time can be short and can be very busy. So we encourage you all to get a date on the calendar now to have a follow-up meeting where you can share some of the key learnings and reflections from the ILE, as well as the notes on what you thought you needed to do in your country group, and that you can take forward that sort of action plan into your next year planning. The very final thing I wanted to say is that I understand some of you have been exploring the potential to join the ILE together as a country team in a physical location where you're together at country level. Now, my only comment on that is that we would really encourage you to follow public health guidance at country level and make sure that you're very aware of the situation and the risks, and that you're following, all guidance for in-person meetings, including size of meetings and health and hygiene protocols during those meetings. After all, we know that people here are passionate about Washington Schools, and we don't want any super spreader events. With that, I will end, I guess. And I really want to just acknowledge Kim and Maud, who made this webinar possible behind the scenes, as always, as well as the partners in convening the ILE this year. You may have noticed that for an online event, we don't have a host government. So we're convening this as a team of GIZ, WaterAid, and UNICEF, and we're really pleased to be working together in partnership as always. Any other questions, or would anybody like to offer a comment? I don't see any hands up, but I see Gertrudis is unmuted. Gertrudis, do you have a question or a comment? Okay, maybe not. Now Gertrudis is muted. Anybody else want to jump in? Or maybe I can invite Kim, Maud, Nicole, Johan, anybody else to jump in with any information that I've missed. Great, so there's a question, again, private to me, but I'm gonna read it out. Have invitations already been sent to relevant ministers of education? That's a great question. The answer is not yet, because we would like to indicate clearly in the letter whether we are inviting them for a presentation, somebody from the ministry to make a presentation or not, and we have not confirmed all of those presentation slots yet. So while we hope that the save the date through all of you and through colleagues from other agencies at country level, while we hope that the save the date has already been sent to the ministries of education and other ministries that are involved in ILEs, we have not sent formal invitations yet. That's something that we're working on right now, and we hope to have drafts that we can share with all of you by the end of the week. One question that we would have for you as country teams is whether you would like the invitation to come from our level at regional level, or whether this is something that, particularly for my UNICEF colleagues, you would like to forward to the ministry from your level at country office level.
So I guess what the silence means is just we've been very, very clear. And there are no more questions. Isn't that wonderful? We might be able to give people some time of their lives back. And anytime you have a question, please feel free to reach out to your regional office focal points. Now the questions are coming in. Wonderful. Irfan, let's have a bilateral chat on the presentations. If you're interested in presenting, there is definitely a space for Pakistan that's still available. But let's have that on a bilateral. And then lots of thanks. Brooke, back over to you for closing words.
Great, that's it. Well, thanks everybody for joining the webinar. We're looking forward to the event. If you have any questions, you can reach out to one of us anytime. We know that you're really busy and that you're doing a lot. You're working, you know, this is unfortunately seems to be a 24-hour team. So you know, we appreciate how hard everybody's working on this, and we know that there's multiple requests and multiple events, as you all highlighted. So, you know, really a big thanks, and let us know what is a feasible date for some of these preparation updates to be sent through. Okay, take care, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you. Great evening for us. Thank you.
Good evening to colleagues in Solomon Islands.
Thank you and goodbye.